stories making the headlines across Nigerian newspapers this morning. I have with me in the studio journalist and senior researcher, TVC News Cyril Abaku. Also with me is lawyer Jide Ologun. Good morning to you. Thank you so much for joining us, gentlemen. All right, let's delve straight in. And the Vanguard this morning is Revolution Now protest. DSS seeks court order to detain Sowore for 90 days. Court fixes Thursday for ruling. Lawyer, 5 others arraigned. Okay, happy protests took place. Sowore speaks from detention. Tackle complaints. Don't arrest protesters. Pandef tells FG. CSOs are also speaking out. Flay shrinking civil space. Now, politically, Sikando's others are calling for the release of Sowore, as well as Kalu and the nation's newspaper freed. Kebbi's state governor Bagudu is also quoted here to say, call for revolution in democracy, condemnable. That's new, for News Direct, Nigerian News Direct is still leading with revolution. DSS 6 court nod to detain Sowore for 90 days. Police charge 6 protesters to court in Lagos. For Daily Trust, the next paper to check out, the lead story there is on floods. How flood killed 4 Abubakar Tafawa Balewa University students. The varsity is short as search continues for those missing. A sad one there. Blueprint is next. It's talking about the presidential poll shift, and INEC chairman is quoted as saying what INEC couldn't tell the world. Says postponement painful but necessary experience. You check that out for details. For Daily Sun, the lead story there is on insecurity. Save Nigeria. Catholic bishops tell FG. Say time running out if security isn't improved. I'm looking at The Nation now. The lead story there is 4 students die, 7 injured as campus bridge collapses. Another big story has been reported still on insecurity. Bishops give federal government wake-up call. Time running out, the Catholic bishops insist. Well, gentlemen, that's so much for the headline stories. But let's look at the updates on this Revolution Now protest, Mr. Ologo. Now we see the DSS in court seeking a bid to extend the detention of Sowore.
And the court has adjourned to rule
Thursday
on the application. And let's see how it goes. But this is a hot one for the DSS. You know, even though he's been alleged to have embarked on treasonable felony, you know, we still have the presumption of innocence as it is. And of course, the word revolution that is now being paraded is subject to several interpretations. And at several points in Nigeria, there has been call for revolution, because if you interpret that word itself, it means a fundamental change. And like I made reference somewhere, what happened in 2015, that an incumbent federal government was dislodged, was a political revolution. And of course, if some Nigerians are now saying revolution now, I think it's an allusion to the fact that the sovereignty that belongs to the people must bring good dividends, because the encapsulated request is that we need good governance. And, you know, like I said, even when the Britons colonized us, a movement led to the political independence we gained on October 1, 1960. So I would rather advise the government, while not stopping the government and DSS to prevent any internal threat to our peaceful coexistence, to also look at the issues. Look at the headlines today: insecurity, different kinds of crime in the land, epileptic economy, several issues. And of course, one of the concerns of the revolution now is the fact that should my great country be one of the poorest in the world, and of course, where do we go from here? I'm particularly disturbed again by something that came out this morning, the new GMD of NNPC assuring us that we will stop importing fuel in year 2023, when I'm yet to recover from the trauma that my great nation that has the largest reserve of proven gas in Africa and the 9th largest in the world spent 11 trillion naira on fuel subsidy in 6 years.
Right.
So these are all the issues. So if I were to advise the government, while trying to enforce the law against a likely treason or treasonable felony or whatever, look at these issues.
Look at the issues. Cyril, do you agree?
If you even looked at the manner in which the police or the security community, you know, descended upon unarmed protesters in Lagos. If you look at what happened in Egypt, what happened in Tunisia, what has happened in different countries of the world, people didn't even come out to say that they were going to cause a revolution. We saw it in Cuba in 1959, we saw it in Russia in 1917. They took action. And so like Judo Logan rightly said, you look at someone is using a word. Of course, when you're in government, the feeling is different. Nobody sits in government and hears about system change or change of order or change of the system or change of, yeah, and sits down comfortably with it. But the fact is that we can look at it from different points of view. Showore's arrest, you've only arrested a person, but to even think that the number of persons that came out that day, you know, the number we saw shows that a seed has been sown, an idea has been sown. And I am not aware if there is any concerted effort also to deal with the issues, like you said, and to deal with the idea. The fact is that we're at a tipping point. We saw what happened yesterday at Tafawa Balewa University. I have said that the school, we didn't need that flood to make that bridge cave in. To even think that students were crossing such a bridge from hostels to classrooms leaves much to be desired. And so we find that it appears we are there's an epidemic of deaths. Yesterday there was a bank robbery in Ondo State. We condole with the family of the lady who died. But did we need that? So from different angles, the bandits, the kidnappers, the abductors, the robbers, it's as if people are having a field day getting away with crime. What do we do?
All right. At this point now, let's also look at the intervention, so to speak, of the court. Before the DSS move yesterday, we had seen legal practitioners also saying, why detain him beyond 2 days? Why hasn't Mr. Sowore been arraigned? Still now we're looking at the ex parte look to it now. First it was El Zakzaki in recent days, and now we are seeing another ex parte. I thought the courts had taken a position as to when to use the minimal use of ex partes without calling the other party.
The DSS needs a court order to legitimately detain him beyond those specified number of days. But this government is under constant test in respect of the rule of law. But I'm not surprised. Our president already cautioned us that national security overrides the rule of law. And some of us have argued that respect for the rule of law is the fountain of justice and peace and prosperity. And we can see the case of El Zakzaki. I did a mental calculation. El Zakzaki was detained against court order for about 55 months at the expense of about 3.5 million naira per month that the former minister of information and culture told us. And that was over 100 million naira just to feed this man and his wife of Nigerian money. And having spent that much to feed him in about 55 months, we could not even make health facilities available. So we are globally embarrassed. How can we be in a country where we don't have medical facilities to treat my president? You see, I made allusion to a case in the USA, the Texas Department of Correction. Some inmates died out of heat. They went to court and the judge ruled that air conditioners be installed in these facilities. And so was it.
All right.
I mean, we need respect for the rule of law.
Let me get Cyril's final take now on this issue. What impact will this have on the protests?
No, what the impact this will have, you see, like you rightly pointed out, we saw how the Zakzaki situation snowballed. The same thing happened with IPOB as well. I think the Nigerian state has only one solution to all of these problems. Whenever agitations come up, the secret police moves in to pick up the arrowhead, and then they use force to disperse its members and look for ways to detain him beyond necessary limits, whether there are court orders or not. For me, you know, it may be easy to already conclude that Sowore might as well gone the way of El Zakzaki too. But the fact is that we need to ask ourselves some fundamental questions. Revolution or not, what do we do to begin to regain our identity as a people, and how do we move from here as a society? It is not enough that, you know, you have the power to disperse protesters. The idea that has been sown ought to be dealt with and addressed. That is the bane of the issue for me.
Cyril Abako, Jide Ologun, we thank you both so much for your analysis of the newspaper review of the newspapers at this point. You watch the lead stories in the papers this morning. With me to do that is Jide Ologun, a lawyer. I also have Cyril Abako here with me. Good morning to you both. Thank you. Thank you so much for always being there. All right, let's start with Vanguard. That's leading with the Revolution Now protest. The update being the DSS 6 court order to detain Sowore for 90 days. Court fixes Thursday for a ruling on that. A lawyer and 5 others have also been arraigned. I'm okay. Happy protest took place. Sowore is quoted there speaking from detention. But then we've had reactions. Pandev tells FG tackle complaints, don't arrest protesters. CSOs flay the shrinking civil space. Secondus, that's the PDP chairman. Others call for Sowore's arrest. Kalu, the Nation's reporter, freed. Call for revolution in democracy, condemnable. This from Kebbi State Governor. And now to News Direct. The Nigerian News Direct is also leading with the revolution protest update. DSS 6 court nod to detain Sowore for 90 days. Police charge 6 protesters to court back here in Lagos. Daily Trust is towing a different line. We heard about the horrendous news of flood killing 4 students of the Abubakar Tafawa Balewa University in Bauchi State. So the update now is in that rider, reading thus, varsity shot as search continues for missing person. And Daily Trust is also leading with a picture story depicting the sorry state of the bridge that caved in Bauchi State. Let's see Blueprint now. Presidential poll shift is the lead story there. What INEC couldn't tell the world. Yakubu, INEC chairman, says postponement painful but a necessary experience. Daily Sun is leading with insecurity. Save Nigeria. Catholic bishops tell federal government, say time running out if security isn't improved. Okay, the Catholic bishops gathered in Ondo State and, you know, made this call. That's also the angle the nation is leading with. Insecurity. Bishops give federal government wake-up call. Time running out. Catholic bishops. All right. So, Cyril, let me begin with you. Now, talking about this wake-up call that's been given to the federal government, in the words of the Catholic bishops, government is not doing enough. What's your take?
You know, I would look at it from 2 basic points of view. The first one being the fact that the capacity of the state to provide its core function, the fundamental, the primary purpose of government, which is to create order, which is to maintain security. Because, as we know, it is only in a secure environment that every other thing can follow. That is one. And then number 2, the political will to actually deliver that mandate is another thing entirely. What we see, as I said earlier, there is an epidemic of deaths. People, I had a friend who turned 50 or so some weeks ago, and when the child was to pray for the father, the child said, in Jesus' name, may you not be kidnapped, and so on. We are now that conscious. So the fact is that we are not secure. That is one. Then number 2, do we have the political will to provide security? Because I believe that to an extent, the intelligence services are gathering intelligence, telling us what is wrong, you know, what is going on, some of which government cannot come to public to come and say. But is the government applying the same measure of stick to all the different aspects of this problem? The other day we saw a video of the bandit coming out to say nobody should go after him. If they went after him, he was going to kill everybody. And that, you know, as if to say that the fact that he even came out to negotiate should be seen as a privilege by the state. How many times do you see people come out to threaten the governments? in that manner.
Right, so we're seeing a lapse somewhere.
So government has its own, its own. Government is sitting on a back foot. That's one, and number two is the fact that perhaps there are also some capacity gaps.
Okay, that said, Cyril. So what next? We've seen the presidential media advisor and Additional, reacting to this Catholic bishop's position, saying blame game is not the way to go. Come forward with practicable, cogent solutions to tackle insecurity.
Blame game itself is a lame game, and this government is also guilty of that. Now, let's isolate this particular regime. The electoral promises were in 3 capsules: to fight insecurity, to fight corruption, and to improve the economy. If you now evaluate the performance so far, you must, or you may be compelled to conclude there is a governance failure somewhere. If you look at Section 14 of the Nigerian Constitution 1999 as amended, the A part says sovereignty belongs to the people, from whom the government derives the authority. And B says that the security and the welfare of the people shall be the primary purpose of government. And so let's even start from that elementary part. Security and welfare. Can we claim those? And they are connected, that those are there now. The answer is no. Now, has the government capacity? Yes. In this country, we have minimum of 10 security agencies. Talking about immigration, customs, and are they
SSS.
on top of the game? And like you brilliantly mentioned, is the political will there? We shouldn't complain of poverty when we don't have a secured environment. And again, like we always advise, I'm advising this government, great things are possibilities. If you have embarked on management by objective, you would have set smart goals. Goals that are specific, measurable, attainable, realistic and time-bound. Let me mention some of the safest countries in the world, and you will be amazed and just agree why they are prosperous. You talk of Iceland, you talk of Portugal, you talk of Switzerland, you talk of Canada, you talk of, Singapore. I think in 2018, Dubai was the 4th most visited countries in the world. And come to Africa, you talk about Rwanda. In year 2017, 1.5 million tourists visited Rwanda, and that earned the country at least $4 million. And thereafter, the president went into a deal with Arsenal because they want to upscale that revenue. Here we are, people are afraid, even within Nigeria. And now, as I round up on this positioning, do you know how this has impacted the local economy? In the past, when you travel to my hometown, for instance, the capital of the world, Okakoko in Ondo State, on your way back to Lagos, you stop to shop, buy things from the farmers.
Does that still exist?
No one does that for the fear of kidnapping. So the millions of naira that exchange hand in the course of those trips, and that is why we are in a poor state. So I challenge the government. Right. The government has demonstrated competence in West Africa. I was listening to an elder statesman who said, are we now saying we can no longer manage our country?
All right.
Who should West Africa look up to?
All right. Let me get Cyril's final take now on this, how we can manage our ethnicity, multiple as it is in Nigeria. US has proven that we can indeed manage our cultural differences. What's your take?
Yeah, I think if the US is too far-fetched for us, we can even look at India, that has many more languages, many more ethnic groups, but has been able to hold it up together. So what is lacking? I think that principally there is a question of leadership. There is a serious question mark on the kind of leadership that you provide. What we need is leadership that does not see itself as protecting the interest of a selected few, but the interest of all. We need pan-Nigerian leadership. And we have to, leadership has to create that pan-Nigerian value system or a pan-Nigerian philosophy for people to key into it. Because as it is today, the level of mutual distrust among the tribes has reached a level that we never reached before in our history. And so leadership has to come to the center and say, look, we are here for everybody and not for a single few, and not for a few. If we can achieve that, you see, because the economy and every other thing that that I can think of relies on leadership, political leadership. If there is the will to provide that kind of leadership, every other thing nationally revolves around it.
All right, Cyril, let me just end that this bit of the conversation. Thank you both, gentlemen, Jide Ologun and Cyril Abaku, for your wonderful insights on newspaper review this morning. Making headlines in Nigerian newspapers this Wednesday. I have with me in the studio journalist and senior researcher at TVC News, Cyril Abaku, our own Cyril Abaku. Good morning to you.
Thank you,
and good morning to you, Mr. Jide Ologun, renowned lawyer. Thank you so much for joining us again.
Good morning.
All right, let's check out the developing stories making headlines. Some news stories also making headlines. We begin with Vanguard. Revolution Now protests. DSS 6 court order to detain Sowore for 90 days. Court fixes Thursday for ruling. Lawyer, 5 others arraigned. I'm okay. Happy protests took place. Sowore speaks from detention. Tackle complaints, don't arrest protesters, Pandev tells FG, and more reactions as civil society organizations flay shrinking civil space in the country. Political dimension now with the PDP chair, Uche Secondus, others calling for Sowore's release, and also a report that Kalu, that's the nation's reporter, has been freed. A call for revolution in democracy condemnable. This from Kebbi Governor Bagudum. News Direct, Nigerian News Direct is leading also with the revolution protests. DSS 6 court nod to detain Sowore for 90 days. Police charge 6 protesters to court in Lagos. But Daily Trust is towing an human angle, leading with the devastating news of flood killing 4 students of the Abubakar Tafawa Balewa University. And now the varsity has been shot as search continues for the missing persons. We'll deal with that in a moment. Let's see blueprint now. Presidential poll shift. What INEC couldn't tell the world. This is from Yakubu, the INEC, from Yakubu, all right. So postponement, painful but necessary experience. Okay, that said, let's also see Daily Sun next. Insecurity, save Nigeria. Catholic bishops tell FG, say time running out if security isn't improved. Finally, at this time, is the nation. Insecurity, bishops give federal government wake-up call. The Catholic bishops insist that time is running out. Let's look at the story talking about the flood, the story about flood killing 4 students in Bauchi State. Jide Ologun, what are your thoughts here as to could these deaths have been avoided?
Primarily, I express my condolences to the nation and the families that have been affected. Of course, it could have been prevented. It is said that you either live by default or by strategy, and depending on the priorities you have in life, we expect that our infrastructures are such that can withstand external shocks that we have, like these natural forces. Because if you critically look at the picture of that bridge, when a serious flood comes, such bridges may not be able to stand, and you now position it in a university community. And like somebody was complaining that, quite a number of times, some of those who are supposed to empower this country infrastructurally, they've gone abroad. They have seen how things are done there, because if we even isolate an elementary school in Colombia, for example, in the US or even in Texas, and you see an elementary school, you may be tempted to conclude that it's a university. And of course, again, it's about the value we have for education. And a country where fight against education seems to be taller than fight for education. Some of us are not surprised that we are having this embarrassing
We've seen the VC speaking out now. The school has been shut for 2 weeks to mourn with the family. Indeed, the entire nation is mourning. We've seen the president also, giving a condolence to the school, urging greater safety on our campuses. I've seen the bridge. We've all seen the bridge now pictured in the papers this morning. according to the VC, only 10 people can use the bridge at a time. But because of the rains now, more than double the number were on the bridge, which also we saw how the bridge caved under. What are your thoughts? The president is talking about safety of students in campuses in the country. You know,
the bridge I saw in the picture, even from a layman's point of view, didn't need a flood to cave in. I believe very strongly that that bridge had been defective. And so you have a bridge situated between a hostel and
the
classroom.
reading center, right?
And then you saw that even when the bridge wasn't submerged in the flood, it looks as if it was not as high up as it could have been.
And it appears that there had been warning, because the visit said there was not enough money to fix the bridge. So
now the question is, you know, I mean, we can look at it from different points of view. At what was the level of water, and the students didn't feel that it was dangerous enough for them, you know, to even be crossing. There is a serious national psychosis. Do you know that we live with danger and we are not even conscious of it anymore? When I was in secondary school, Kemi, we were crossing pipelines to go to school every day. One day, one of those pipelines burst, you know, it exploded. Houses caught fire. The following morning, when the fire came down, we continued crossing again and going to school. There was no other road. So, like Jide has told you, there is a fight against education. The issue is that some of these issues are the same things ASU always talks about in basic infrastructure, this and that and that and that. It's as if we are not paying attention to the things we should be paying attention to. A university that perhaps has an engineering faculty, how are you teaching children in an environment where the things you're teaching them are not, they can't even see it? But these people are going to design bridges and, you know, and structures for society. It's an anathema. It's a paradox. And so we need to ask ourselves some basic questions. Now, if you have a bridge linking an institution, linking hostels to classroom.
Mind you, this is even said to be the shorter route. There was a longer route in the school.
Do you teach people emergency measures, what to do in case the bridge was coming down? We've had floods in Abuja where people have died. We're waiting to see things like animated video clips of how do you cope with if sudden flood came upon you. How do you cope with it? At what point shouldn't you walk through water if it came to maybe your knees or your ankle or something? It's not there.
Basic
we don't,
rescue tips even for the students.
We don't have any of those.
Okay, so we have a stream situated in a school. I'm also looking at this angle now. What are our students learning these days? If there's paucity of funds, as the VC put it now, to fix that bridge, how about we empower our students, our undergraduates, to also be solution providers in their immediate environment? Do they have enough to also teach the larger society what has failed? Can we fix the systems using the students themselves?
I mentioned the concept of value, and I want to enter into the doctrine of imagination. Imagine that 11 trillion naira we spent on full subsidy in 6 years, that we've gotten our refineries working, and we could save that to empower the university communities. You can imagine that we won't have crises like this. And of course, on what you roll out, what you impute determines the output you get. It's still about the vision. So if education is so important to us, like it is in Canada, like it is in the US, like it is in the United Arab Emirates, like it is in Rwanda, you know, let me give you an example, you know, beyond this. In the US, a civil engineering student sent a message in her second year that we have been taught how to produce cement. This is so, it's all a function of values. And that is why some of us wondered that perhaps if someday we have laws in the country that says, okay, you are a public officer, your children cannot school abroad, you cannot go for medical care abroad, you know, we are limited to the local content of infrastructure, then we will do the right things. But when those who are supposed to empower the country infrastructurally are isolated from the realities and insulated from the shocks, this may continue. And the next question may be, what next? I'm still asking a question, is the Aso Villa Clinic now equipped to handle the health of my president? If the answer is no, the journey is still far. But we just want to say you can either mortgage the future or secure the future. We need to secure the future of this country, engage our resources to empower the nation.
Right.
And I think that's the best way to go.
Your final words going to be brief now. Many more are still missing from what we gather, even though 4 have been reported dead.
So what we need to do, you know, intensify the efforts, get the students who get their bodies back, you know, and give them back to their parents, let them have a befitting burial, and then let us accept the fact
Can
that...
we even take an inventory now of our university system? ASU has been fighting this
The
war for such a
federal
long
university
time.
in Wukari was shut last week because Steve and Juku students began to,
Clash.
you know, a clash. So this thing is deepening gradually. And it is sad that, you know, the upcoming generation is having its fair share of this crisis at this early age. It portends ill for the future. What we need to do again, like Judah has rightly said, let's come back and rework our value system and put priority where priorities should be. Education is the bedrock and future of any society. If our students are not even seeing the ideal, they cannot have a sense of the future that they should be creating for themselves. Right. So that's you know, like a huge missing link, and it ought to be plugged into.
Right. That said, gentlemen, Jide Ologun and Cyril Abako, thank you so much for the points you've made.